Horror stories rarely show what happens after someone leaves the family, because that's when the real punishment begins. This is a true horror story meant to help you fall asleep, but it probably won't. Leaving a family is rarely shown in horror stories, not because it isn't interesting, but because it's uncomfortable. Horror loves to show us broken homes, manipulation, silence, loyalty enforced through fear. But it almost never shows what happens when someone finally walks away, because that's when the family changes. In stories, monsters chase you when you run. Families do something else. They wait. In the last video, we talked about creepy families in fiction. Families that look normal. Families that function as systems. Families that survive by keeping everyone in their place. This is what happens when someone refuses to stay in that place. Leaving a family isn't dramatic at first. There's no explosion, no final argument, no clear moment where everything ends. Most of the time, it starts quietly. A boundary, a missed call, a decision not to explain yourself anymore. And that's when the tension begins. Because to a dysfunctional family, leaving isn't independence, it's betrayal. Families like these don't see themselves as harmful. They see themselves as right. They don't ask, "Why are you leaving?" They ask, "What are you trying to prove?" In horror fiction, this moment is treated like a crime. The family doesn't panic because they've lost you. They panic because the system has been disrupted. Someone stepping away exposes the rules, the silence, the control. And suddenly, you're dangerous. You can see this dynamic clearly in the invitation. The family doesn't threaten. They don't force anyone to stay. They welcome you back with smiles, with food, with understanding. They say things like, "We just want you to feel safe again." But underneath that kindness is pressure, expectation, a quiet insistence that leaving was a mistake. That's how families pull people back in, not with fear, with guilt. In horror, families rarely drag someone home. They convince them they never should have left. Another example is Get Out. The family appears polite, progressive, supportive. But the moment the main character realizes what's happening, leaving becomes impossible. Not because of locked doors, but because the family has already decided who he is. "You're one of us now." That sentence appears again and again in horror. Once a family claims you, your autonomy becomes negotiable. Leaving isn't framed as self-preservation. It's framed as ingratitude. And then there's Midsummer, a story about losing one family and being absorbed into another. At first, the new family feels warm, supportive, present, but it has rules, expectations, a shared belief system that doesn't tolerate dissent. By the time the protagonist realizes the cost of belonging, she has nowhere else to go. That's another horror truth. Families don't just punish those who leave. They punish those who hesitate, because hesitation suggests choice, and choice is dangerous. This is why leaving a family feels terrifying, even when staying hurts. Because you're not just leaving people, you're leaving a narrative. You're stepping out of the story the family tells about itself. And when you do that, the family doesn't ask how you're doing. They rewrite who you are. You become distant, cold, unstable. They say things like, "You've changed," not as an observation, but as an accusation. In horror stories, this is the moment when the tone shifts. The family that once claimed to love you now watches you closely. They talk about you instead of to you. And slowly, the story turns. You're no longer the one who was hurt. You're the one who caused harm. This is the real punishment for leaving. Not isolation, but inversion. Your reasons disappear. Your pain is minimized. Your boundaries become evidence against you. There's a reason horror doesn't show this phase often. Because it's too familiar. Because many people recognize it immediately. The phone calls that stop. The invitations that disappear. The quiet understanding that you are no longer safe to mention. And yet, the family still claims to miss you. That contradiction is intentional. Because if they can't control you, they need to control the story. In horror, families don't hunt the one who leaves. They replace them. Someone else takes your role. Someone else absorbs the pressure. The system stabilizes again. And that's when you realize something unsettling. The family didn't need you. It needed your position. That's why leaving feels like failure. Because you weren't taught how to live without the system. You were taught how to function inside it. Horror stories understand this deeply. They show us that freedom has a cost. Not because leaving is wrong, but because the family needs you to believe it is. And that's the final cruelty. The family doesn't chase you forever. Eventually, it lets you go. But only after convincing everyone else that you were the problem all along. That's why leaving a family is one of the most frightening acts in horror. Not because of what you lose, but because of what the family becomes once you're gone. The scariest part isn't that they move on without you, it's how easily they do. Have you noticed this pattern in horror stories? The punishment that comes after someone leaves? Let me know which story made this feel uncomfortably real, and if this felt like the next step in something bigger. You're right.